Welcome to Syngenta's corn nursery facilities. During this video, you will learn what to do in your role as a corn pollinator. We will explain the procedures to carry out manual corn pollinations in a safe, correct, and efficient way. If after watching there's anything that you are not clear about, don't worry. Your supervisor will also explain and demonstrate the process to you and give you any help you may need. Your supervisor will also tell you about any changes to this introduction that may be required. Here at Syngenta, we're proud to be a leading agriculture company helping to improve global food security by enabling millions of farmers to make better use of available resources. We do this by developing highly effective crop protection products and producing high-yielding, outstanding quality seeds and making these available to farmers around the world. Syngenta's plant breeding programs have a strong focus on corn. Corn contributes to animal feed and global food security and is in many everyday ingredients such as starch, polenta, and cooking oil. It is also used for renewable energies such as ethanol, industrial processes such as plastics, fabrics, and adhesives, and even personal use in cosmetics and soaps. In your role of pollinator, you are critical to helping us develop better varieties of corn. Before starting the manual pollination process, we need to show you the various parts of a corn plant and how corn pollination occurs in nature. Each individual corn plant has two reproductive parts, the male part and the female part. Let us have a closer look at the male part at the top of the plant. This is called the tassel. Each tassel carries approximately 6,000 anthers that produce pollen. One tassel can produce up to 5 million grains of pollen over several days. Most pollen will be shed throughout the warmest part of the day and only has a lifespan of a few hours. Now let's have a closer look at the female part. This is called the shoot and is usually positioned halfway up the stalk. A plant develops 2 or 3 shoots, but it's the top shoot that's most important for pollination. The shoot is leafy and contains a cob inside. The cob holds hundreds of ovaries that have the potential to produce one kernel each. Each ovary produces a silk. A silk is a fine, sticky hair running up the length of the cob. As silks mature, they'll begin to elongate and emerge from the shoot. Under natural conditions, pollen is dispersed by wind and insects and will cross-pollinate, meaning that pollen from one plant will reach the emerging silks of a nearby plant and fertilize the ovules to generate a kernel. In plant breeding, however, pollinations are not left to nature. Plant breeding combines specific characteristics of plants, and this is achieved through controlled or manual pollination. Manual pollination is the technique of isolating female and male parts to prevent unwanted pollinations, and subsequently collecting pollen and bringing it into contact with specific shoots to trigger fertilization and kernel development. There are 3 pollination principles involved in manual pollination. Firstly, we isolate the female and male parts by covering them with bags. Secondly, we use the bags to collect pollen from the male part and distribute it to the female part of the same or other plants. And thirdly, we protect the pollinated female part. This 3-stage process needs to be tightly controlled to avoid contaminations. Contaminations happen when pollen from an unwanted source reaches the silks and impure kernels develop, which is detrimental to the breeding progress. There are 2 main types of manual pollinations in corn: self-pollinations and cross-pollinations. Self-pollination means taking pollen from the tassel to the silks of the same plant. This type of pollination is used to produce inbred lines. These plants will be marked with a tag with the text "Self." Cross-pollination means taking pollen from the tassel of one plant to the silks of another plant or multiple plants. This type of pollination is used to produce hybrids. The male and the female parents will be marked with the tag M and F, respectively. You will need several supplies for performing manual pollinations. A pollination apron to wear around your waist with several pockets in which you can carry tassel bags, shoot bags, scissors, stapler, staples, and paper clips. Please note the tassel and shoot bag should be placed in the apron with the opening facing down to avoid pollen contamination and should be in good condition. You will also need to wear closed shoes, long sleeves, long trousers, glasses, and a sun hat. Remember to drink plenty of water during the day. After a briefing from your supervisor, you will proceed to the corn rows that have been assigned to you and start your activities. The 3 stages of corn pollination that you will be carrying out are: firstly, shoot bagging. A few days later, once the tassels start producing pollen, silks cutting and tassel bagging. And the day after that, actual pollinating. Shoot bagging is the process where a young shoot is covered before its silks start showing, to prevent pollen from coming into contact with the silks when they start emerging. You will need to follow these steps. Look for developing shoots. A stalk that is close to producing shoots will start elongating and swelling between the leaf nodes. The top shoot is the one that needs to be covered, as it will be the largest and will eventually produce the most seed. If the shoot is hidden behind a leaf, carefully remove the leaf to expose the shoot. When you see an emerging shoot and you can feel the cob inside it, take a white shoot bag from your apron and make an insertion between stalk and shoot with the shoot bag. Place your shoot bag over the shoot, with the long side of the bag against the stalk. Always make sure the bag is pushed right down so it can't be blown or knocked off. Look out for sneaky silks. These are where silks start elongating and being exposed before the shoots are even visible behind the leaf. Do not cover these shoots with a bag. Instead, ask your supervisor for advice. Before moving on, let's recap on the do's and don'ts. Check for emerging shoots with cobs inside. Cover the top shoots only. Secure shoot bags firmly. Tell your supervisor if you see any sneaky silks. Don't cover shoots with silk showing. Don't cover lower shoots unless instructed by your supervisor. The next activity after shoot bagging is silks cutting and tassel bagging. These 2 processes are always done at the same time the day before manual pollination takes place. Silks cutting is a process where emerging silks are cut off in order to expose them more evenly to the pollen. Silks are not always cut off. Your supervisor will tell you when to carry out this step. Tassel bagging is the process where tassels with pollen are covered with a bag. Before you start, be clear if you are doing self-pollinating or cross-pollinating, as cross-pollinating will determine the location and number of shoots to cut. Your supervisor will let you know. Here are the steps you need to take for silks cutting and tassel bagging. We called the 3 steps TSP for a teaspoon of pollen. T for tassel checking. Look on the tassel for protruding anthers with fresh pollen. If you are cross-pollinating, 25% of the tassel should be covered with protruding anthers. If you are self-pollinating, 50% of the tassel should be covered with protruding anthers. If this is the case, proceed to S for silks cutting. In the case of cross-pollination, your supervisor will tell you how many shoots you need to cut per flowering tassel. For self-pollination, the ratio will always be 1 tassel to 1 shoot, as you will be pollinating the same plant. Look to see if a covered shoot has silks growing. Don't uncover the shoot, but feel for silk through the shoot bag or view the bag with sunlight behind it. If silks are showing, feel for the hard cob and cut the top of the shoot with scissors about 4 centimeters above it. The cut silks will have a gummy, dark center and should be at least a pencil width in diameter. Replace the shoot bag and fold the upper section of the shoot bag under to indicate that it is cut. This should not take more than 5 seconds. Never touch the cut area with your fingers. P for proceed to tassel bagging. For setting up a tassel bag, grab the tassel at its bottom and bend the plant a bit. Open the bag and place it over the tassel so that the pollination bag front is facing you. Fold the bag lengthwise and bring the bottom corners of the bag towards you and fold upward, diagonally, to the side and back. Secure with a paper clip. So, let's recap on the do's and don'ts. Be sure that tassels are shedding adequate amounts of pollen before cutting silks. Cut silks back quickly. Fold the upper part of the shoot bag to show that silks are cut. Only cover the tassels when pollen is in the right status. 25% for cross-pollination, 50% for self-pollination. Don't expose silks when checking for their development. When cutting silks, don't expose them for more than 5 seconds. Don't touch the cut area of the silks with your fingers. Don't bag tassels that have not begun to shed pollen or tassels that are no longer shedding pollen. The last activity is the actual pollination. This is normally done the day after silk cutting and tassel bagging. There are 2 pollination methods: tenting method and pouring method. The tenting method is preferred for self-pollinations or 1-to-1 cross-pollinations and minimizes the risk of contamination as the shoot is not exposed. Carefully bend the tassel bag over and smack the bag to knock the pollen into the bag. Then, take the paper clip off and slip the bag off the tassel. Carefully fold the bag across the middle to form a tent. With the bag still folded, place the opening over the shoot bag on the same plant, remove the shoot bag, and place over the shoot. Bring the bottom of the bag up over the shoot and open wide, shaking the pollen over it. Staple the ends of the bag around the stalk, leaving enough room for the shoot to grow. For cross-pollinations, normally the pouring method is used. This method is preferred if there is a need to make multiple pollinations within a group, there are not enough male parts, or not enough pollen has been produced. Carefully bend the tassel bag over, gently smacking the bag to shake off pollen into the bag. Remove the paper clip and slip the bag off the tassel. Fold the tassel bag across the middle and keep it in your apron until you need it. Repeat the procedure of taking bags down for all tassel bags. Look for the cut shoots in the female rows, then take a tassel bag from your apron and start pollinating. Fold the tassel bag lengthwise to create a channel. Quickly remove the shoot bag and pour a portion of the pollen onto the silks, making a circular movement. Quickly cover the silks with a new tassel bag and staple it closed. Keep the remaining pollen for further pollinations. The process of uncovering, pollinating, and covering the silks again should not take more than 5 seconds. By ensuring that silks are only exposed briefly, we can reduce the chance of contamination. Once again, let's recap on the do's and don'ts. For self-pollinations or one-to-one pollinations, use the tenting method. For cross-pollinations, use the pouring method unless indicated differently. When doing cross-pollinations, ration out the pollen as you will need it to pollinate several shoots. Secure the paper bag in a way that ensures the shoots have enough space to develop. Don't expose silks when doing the tenting method. Don't expose the silks for more than 5 seconds when doing the pouring method. Remember the 3 stages of corn pollination that you will be carrying out. 1. Shoot bagging. This is carried out once the shoots emerge and before they start silking. It also protects the shoots from coming into contact with any pollen. 2. Silks cutting and tassel bagging. This is carried out once the tassels have the appropriate amount of pollen. Remember the 3 stages. T for tassel checking, checking if tassels are producing pollen. S for silks cutting, cutting the silks to prepare them for pollination and exposing them more evenly for pollen. And P, proceed to tassel bagging, covering the pollen-shedding tassels so that pollen is trapped inside the tassel bag. 3. Actual pollinating. This happens the day after silk cutting and tassel bagging. The tenting method is a contamination-free method used for self-pollination or one-to-one cross-pollination. The pouring method is for cross-pollination where pollen from one tassel bag is distributed to multiple plant silks. Remember, your supervisors will always be nearby and happy to offer help should you need it. Good luck and thank you for being a part of a team that is helping millions of growers worldwide.